Welcome to Storytelling. This week's guest is a certified emotional mastery specialist, sophrologist, human rights consultant, published author, international speaker, podcaster, and mother. She specializes in emotional mastery in every aspect of life, love, business, and beyond human logic. Through her work, she guides and empowers her clients to embody their own voice of truth, blending practical tools with deep spiritual wisdom to create lasting transformation in both their personal and professional lives. Get ready for a powerful and heart-centered conversation that will inspire you. Please welcome Eleanora Heart. Hello, Eleanora, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Debbie.
Eleanora, can you tell us about your childhood in the Philippines? What was life like growing up there?
Wow, the Philippines. Yes, long way home for me. Yeah, so the childhood there, this is how it starts. It's nice and warm. Yes, for sure. It's tropical. All the island is all lush and everything. But this little girl here grew up in a very, very poor environment, like slums. I remember between 3 to 5 years old, like we have to haul water from a public water pump for drinking water, for your laundry, and you carry that buckets by buckets. And it's a long way home. For me as a little girl, you have smaller steps than your parents or big brother and sisters, right? So yeah, walking from one place to another just to get water for drinking and laundry and carrying it with, using buckets to carry that. To me, that was a normal thing until you start asking yourself questions and you start comparing yourself to other kids around you who grew up differently. And so happened my neighbor there was my classmate, and I saw him like, wow, he's got a maid, he's got a car, he's got gates and everything in his house. It was a mansion. I was like, what's the difference between a poor man and a rich man? What do they do different than my parents? So to me, growing up in that area made me question everything as a young kid. I didn't know why I was attracted to that kind of thought. It was really hard because that's when I knew the difference between the poor and the rich, and I was so hungry for growth of how to change my own reality at a young age.
So you wanted to change your reality at a young age. So what were your dreams or hopes as a child?
My dreams were I wanted to become an astronaut, but then it's like, I wanted to be a pilot, so I just wanted to fly. It's just the feeling of freedom to fly from where I was growing up. It's like more like an escape kind of thing, just dreaming. And because I have seen it on TV, like, that person went flying here and there, like even like the cartoons like Superman, like, in those days in the 80s. Yeah, so just the feeling of the freedom, how to free yourself from the suffering around you.
So you moved from the Philippines to Zambia.
Yeah.
What was that like? And how did you adapt to a completely new culture, language, and environment?
Oh, this is the fun part. Because I've never been on an airplane before. And that was the very first time we went to the British Airways Airlines. And we stopped at London, UK, right? From Philippines, Hong Kong, then UK, and we had a layover there for one night. And guess what? The first thing I grabbed in the hotel room was a box of cereal. I was like, where's the food gonna come from? Cereal, what is this? And I shook it. It's like I hear something. And then the waiter was just kind of giggling in the corner there. And I was like, what is this? Where's the food? Where's the food? Because, growing up in the Philippines, everything is from scratch. You get it from the tree, mangoes, guavas, and all that stuff. But then you go to modern cities, and then the waiter showed me how to open the box of cereal, those little tiny boxes. And then I was like, food comes from a box here? That was the very first time I've experienced what it felt like, wow, I taste a little bit of what rich feels like. So then from there, we landed in Africa. And again, it was a very, very hot day. And my dad was already there ahead of time because he applied for a job. So he came and picked us up at the airport and he said, "Oh, my family has come." Like, so he picked us up with his car. And we never had cars before. I was like, "Oh, Dad, you have a car. We are rich now. We are rich now." And suddenly he drove us all the way to the new home. And this home has bricks and running water. I went straight to the bathroom. "Look, we have running water." And I jumped on the bed. It was soft bed. It's not bamboo hard bed like we had in the Philippines. That was a huge change in everything. I was so happy, and I saw my parents happy, not suffering. They have a full-time job. My dad working at a copper mining company there, and then the company sent the kids to private school. And I had to learn English there, how to speak British English because it's a British standard English. Yeah, it was very, very cool to experience what it feels like to what I consider rich at the time, right? So yeah, it was amazing for kids to see their parents and to for me to see myself smiling again. And actually, the best part was the running water, and I could have a bath. That's like what it feels like to have that feeling. Yeah, it almost felt like flying a little bit.
What did you learn about yourself during that transition from that life in the Philippines to moving to Zambia?
Yeah, I wanted to let it last longer, but unfortunately, what happened after that is my dad's contract only lasted 2 years. So I started seeing my parents, they hit rock bottom again. For me, it's like as a kid watching and observing how my parents parent us, how they manage money, and I got more questions to God. At the time we were very, very religious. So my mom and dad decided to become a missionary in the Africa and stayed in Africa longer and had their own restaurants business and stuff like that. So fast forward that we stayed about another 12 years there until I met my husband at the time in Africa. He was a missionary too from Canada. We got married within 22 days. He was very, very fast, and I stayed with him in the jungle of Africa and surrounded with monkeys. And at night, there's hyenas. And we built our first home there in the jungle. And I'm talking about really jungle. We have no electricity, and suddenly my survival mode kicked in. And I was like, "Oh, I know how to survive where there's no water and no electricity." So we just had candles. Yeah, so every time you wake up, the monkeys will greet you in the morning and eat your vegetable in your garden. So it was rough and tough, I would say. It's not for the faint of heart living in Africa, but it made me grow up as a child so fast to instantly an adult. You always have to have a survival skill how to live there. It wasn't easy, but I appreciated in the end because it was a lot of lessons.
And then you were fortunate enough to have another transition because you moved from Zambia to Canada. So what was that transition like and how did you adapt to
The transition is like another one. It felt like when I went to London, right? Like the transitions, because my husband at the time, he said like, "Oh, when you come to Canada, I'm gonna show you everything that you've never experienced before." Like we have different ice cream there too. Like because in Africa it was a dictatorship country and it wasn't democracy yet, and it wasn't developed yet. So when I moved to Canada, I was like, "Whoa, the food is just right there in the store. You can have everything you want, and like you don't have to cook from scratch anymore." So it was a culture shock for me because I was like, what's the point of cooking when you just get it from, again, bigger box this time? It's a bigger box. So I started adjusting to that. Then suddenly I questioned again, like, who am I as a woman this time? Then suddenly I found out that I got pregnant, and then I got pregnant again 11 months later. Then I got pregnant again another 11 months later. So I have 4 kids within 2 years and became a citizen here in Canada after raising, like little toddlers. But I was a stay-at-home mom, and I question again everything. Who am I apart from being a mother? But I just felt something inside of me. Like I felt like there's more than just being a mom. What is it? What is it? Who am I? Like, so I start questioning people who are in the same boat as me, but they couldn't answer that. Who am I? So I started reading different books like psychology. I started educating myself, and I started educating about quantum consciousness and moving forward. And I homeschooled my kids as they were growing up, and then we would travel the world with my husband doing some humanitarian work, and I raised money for the terminal AIDS patients and cancer patients, and also orphanage in Africa and the Caribbean. So fast forward, my son passed away actually in 2018 when he was 14 years old, while I was running a bed and breakfast in our home. And that took a real big change in my life as a mother. And then I start questioning again, who am I as a mother? Because you try to paint a perfect picture, and suddenly something rip up out of you, like a truck hit you. Yeah, so that was really, really tough for me. Like, what's the point of preaching the gospel here and there, and then suddenly you hit rock bottom again? It's like, what's the point? And the suicide really changes me as a mother, and I started questioning why God did not save my kid when I used to be suicidal when I was at that age too, living in Africa. Because living in Africa, like I said, mentioned before, watching my parents hit rock bottom, and it's like going through that, it makes you question life, whether you want to keep going. And when I lost my son, it just felt like it's the end of the world for mother. At the same time, my other three kids were reminding me, Mom, just because we lost our brother doesn't mean you forget about us. We're still living. Don't forget the living. So that woke me up, and I asked the universe, and I remember because we live right on the water. After the day he died, I went paddling. I had my paddleboard, and I just shouted at the universe, "Oh God, like, why didn't you rescue him? You rescued me." Suddenly, the time changed, and this time change, that meaning it stopped. I call it the wrinkle of time. It's like the time wrinkled and opened up the universe, and suddenly I heard the voice and said, "Why don't you ask me a question like, where is my son? Is he safe with you? Has he found love?" That was the important thing. Has he found love in heaven? Has he made peace with you? And the voice said, "Yes, there's no hell here. There is no hell." And that's what made me question, what? All along I've been preaching there's hell, and then there's no hell? You're telling me there's no hell? But my most important part was I wanted to find out whether he's okay. Because I still wanted to mother him. And then the voice said, "Yeah, he's fine. He's forgiven." And I saw him. He has his angel wings, and he's still wearing his clothes on the day he died, black t-shirt and blue jeans. Fast forward 2 months later, he came in my dream and said, "Mom, it's not your fault." And he asked me to forgive him. And I said, "There's nothing to forgive. There's nothing to forgive. Just stay, just stay." And I cried because I thought everything was my fault. I did not rescue him from his own misery. And to me, when he came back in spirit, it was a relief as a mother. And that's when it made sense that his death and the way he did it, it was like, for me, what I found is grief is a price of love, and how to turn your grief into love, into grace, and how to turn your loss into love was my gift to the world, as the way he gifted that to me as well. Like, Mom, you have to spread this to the world. And then suddenly, in the physical realm, these people that I thought they're going to judge me, my home became a heaven to kids who are similar to him. So my other three kids would bring home suicidal kids to my home, and parents would ask questions, help me, how did you do it? Like, you're still standing there and writing your book and about this, so could you help? I started crying, and then I started writing my book. It's called The Code of I Am. Apart from asking who I am, I included my son's story in there.
So it's a very difficult subject to talk about in terms of your son's suicide, and families are often forgotten about in terms of the effect suicide has on. What did grief teach you about yourself in particular?
Wow. Yeah, after going through so many grief, like not only I lost my son, I lost my dad. I mean, grief can be not just death, can be a loss of a job, a loss of your marriage, like I did. I lost my marriage, 20 years of marriage just 3 years ago. And then after that, I lost my late partner through death as well. So what grief taught me is, it's like I said, it's a price of love. It taught me that there's a greatest gift about your inner power, that is about grace, how to have grace in yourself. That dark and shadows is not separated from the light. They're part of it together, and not to be afraid of grief, but learn to face grief and embrace grief because there's love in it, and not to be attached to anything but learn from everything. That's what grief has taught me, is not to attach to just anything that is brought to you, but learn to embrace and love it anyway. Choose love all the time. That's what grief has taught me. Yeah, because we're all just passing through here in this world.
And you've successfully managed to bring alive a book about the I am. And you said your story about finding yourself and knowing yourself in the moment. What does that look like in your life today?
Wow, that's a great question. Yes, what does that look like for me today is, in this season in my life, I learned how to embody it, but I have not stopped learning. I believe I still have more layers to uncover what is the I am. But at this time, I am ready to share what I have learned. And the story in my book, The Code of I Am, it's not just about my story. It's just an example of how you embody the I am. Because we can be so knowledgeable, but we don't embody it. We can even search ChatGPT, what is this? And we can form a playbook about that, but do we actually embody it? There's a difference between knowledge and understanding, and there's a difference between talking and walking your talk. So I love to walk my talk, but I have to go through it. And that's what the I am taught me in these situations in my life. And I have helped clients as well to uncover their own I am. It's a beautiful thing to witness. And for me, just to witness someone is, I felt like I have completed my purpose. So that's what the book is about. And yeah, just to find your resonance, your essence. It's not about your worldly identities, but you can use your worldly identities as leverage as a human, and more like asking people, do you see your soul has skin in the game of life? And meaning, do you embody what your soul desires? And your soul can experience the human experiences as well.
Eleanora, if you could go back to your younger self, that little girl growing up in the Philippines, what would you tell her?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would tell her that everything's going to be okay. Don't give up. But at the same time, I would tell her now, from an adult version of me, thank you for not giving up on us, for believing in your dreams. Thank you for asking those questions. And that questioning everything is so important. So I encourage others to question everything, regardless of what you're going through sicknesses, because you're going to get there.
What message do you hope that others can take from your journey and from reading your book?
The message is, believe in magic, be delusional as much as you can, because most of the time, most of us were ingrained to be so obsessed and have faith in logic that we forget we have a soul that need to experience to have the skin in the game of life too, and to mix both the spiritual and the logic. And I think you need to have both good worlds, to combine them together, and not just to forget your soul, because without the soul you won't. What's the point? And the point is, for me, is to feel alive in every aspects of life. And that's what I really want people is to point us is, do you feel alive in what you do? Apart from being an expert of something, do you feel alive with it? Does it have purpose?
What's next for you, emotionally, spiritually, or creatively?
Okay, so emotionally, what's next for me is to learn more about layers and layers of how can we master not to get sick anymore. Because look at the world, right? There's so much sicknesses here out there. And I remember, this is another story, when I gave birth to the twin girls and I got really sick. And it's called uretoma multiforme, and it was malignant, not benign, and it was a sudden sickness. It's a skin illness, and it's like a rush, and it eats you from the inside out every 24 hours. So it was itchy at the same time. There was pus coming out, and the more you scratch it, the more it spread from head to toe. So they rushed me back to the hospital, and my twin girls were born premature, so they were already in the hospital to gain more weight, but they're healthy babies. So I went back to the hospital. So before the nurse came to give me all these medications, stuff like that, I was crying from the inside out, but I wasn't crying out loud, but in my mind I was. So there was like a telepathy, me speaking to the universe, or my guardian angel. And so I spoke in my mind silently, I need help. I need help. This is not why I'm gonna die. I need help, and suddenly the time stopped. And then you could see people moving slowly, like in slow motion. It was funny. And then I saw an angel appeared in my bedside and said, "What do you want, Eleanora?" I said, "I want to learn how to heal." So suddenly he explained to me about DNA strand restructuring and then nutritional value, what types of food not to eat and what to eat, and suddenly Angel restructured my DNA and kind of like fixed all my meridian points. And he just disappeared, right? And then the time went back to normal. And then I saw the nurse came in with more medications on a table. And then that's when they're about to inject some painkiller in me. But I was starting to feel better a little bit, but my body was weak, but my spirit was strong. So fast forward, what actually the angel was saying, like, you need to say some mantra in your body. So I start saying those healing mantra in my body silently to get healed. So within 2 weeks, because I was given 6 weeks to live, within 2 weeks, I got healed. Within 2 weeks, the rashes were gone and stuff like that. And I started eating nutritional whole foods, and I kept it, and I kept it, and I kept it, maintaining that for the rest of my life, and I felt good. So for over 20 years, I have not been sick. So emotionally, in speaking, for me, I want to expand that. Meaning, I want to expand that message to the world, how to have longevity with grace, with the essence of the I am, how to speak the I am in your DNA strands in your body. Yeah. So to answer the rest of your questions, psychology, spiritually, that that we need to really focus and be centered and start. Please question everything in your life. Question everything in your life, because one day we're gonna die, and then we find out what we been taught to believe is all a lie. So it's good to question everything in your life, and even spiritually, or mentally or financially as well, you need to question that, and how we can be centered, and meaning how to really master our evolution, because we need to keep growing, because just because we got a degree in here and there doesn't mean it's over. And that doesn't mean we have mastered already. We need to master different layers just to what I'm trying to say, be multi-dimensional being, because there's different layers of us. Because the truth is like looking at this cell phone, and you see that one side, and I see the back of it. You see the front, right, Devi? And let's say there's another person sitting on the left side and the other person sitting on the right side. So how would I know the truth if I don't go and visit you over there and live with you? And the same thing vice versa, right? So really, and what about the people on the top of they see the top elevation of the shape of the phone, right? So what is truth? Truth is formless. Truth is multi-dimensional. So that's why I'm encouraging people in every aspect of life have different truths. So you can't say just because people live in Africa, that's how their normal is. Doesn't mean their normal isn't normal to you. So you can't change people's normal just because it's different than yours. So sometimes our blind spot is our own belief, not understanding other people's truth as well.
Eleanora, what inspired you to write your book, The I Am?
What inspired me? Wow. What inspired me about the book is helping not only myself, but others find their own I am, their own resonance. More like the resonance. It's not worldly identities that I'm a doctor, I'm a publisher, or whatever, I'm a mother or father. It's not that. It's about your essence. I'm looking for an essence. So what inspired me that is going through those experiences of what is an essence. I have to go through those experiences. I'm going to ask the audience to be open to this belief because what I'm about to describe is very spiritual, which is my guardian angel. I met my guardian angel when I was 3 years old. And this guardian angel just said the voice, watch the pattern of life. So from that day, I didn't know at 3 what that meant. So that inspiration stuck with me when I was 3. That's when I started asking those questions. I like to ask questions silently, but I had to go through them in order to get an answer. So I kept writing and writing. It started in 2008 because my angel said, write a book. It's going to be a movie one day. And I laughed actually when the angel said like, me, come on, you're so delusional. Like I said that to myself. So like, really? So anyway, I just followed the voice, right? Write a book. So the first title of the book was called Who Am I? And then at 2008, I remember Oprah was talking about the I am, the who am I, and I watched those people answering like, no, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. So I just decided to go through in my life what it is. So like, who am I as a child? Who am I as a woman or a teenager? Who am I as a wife? Who am I as a mother? So those were my chapters in the book. The last chapter is the reveal of the I am. So I start collaborating with the universe or my angel. Okay, you need to help me here. What is the I am in all of these chapters? This is also can be for men as well. Who am I as a father? Who am I as a man? So what I'm trying to say is the essence is called trust, joy, enlightenment, peace. What is that? I use that. Are you embodying that essence? That is the I am. But most people said, that's not the I am. I am my name. Like, no, you're more than a name. I am my DNA. No, you're more than a DNA. I am my bloodline. No, you're more than a bloodline. And I felt that and I started embodying it because when I said more than your DNA, because when like I mentioned before, is I got sick, right? Within 6 weeks, I got healed. So we are more than our DNA because we can really, really structure. So what controls the structuring is the I am, meaning you want to feel whole. Being whole means you never get sick. If you know the secret in life, you will never get sick. And that's what I was after for. It's like, okay, angel, teach me how to never ever get sick if I know the secret of life. So how to know if someone is actually spiritually chosen? You have to know the secret of life. One is symptoms, we call it, here on earth is never get sick. So to go back to the angel saying, write your story. It's going to be a movie. Fast forward, that was in 2008 when I met my producer, Steven. 2023, he found my article about personal growth. He said, hey, do you have a book? I said, I do have a book. I published it already. Are you interested to turn that into a film? I'm like, yes, why not? So yeah. Well, I was worrying at that time, like, but at the same time, I said, yeah, for sure. So we start working together. From there, what inspired me is to just help people to find their own I am, that you're not your worldly identities, but you can leverage the worldly identities to experience your soul, meaning ask yourself whether you're going to permit your soul to have the skin in the game of life, meaning let your soul experience human experiences. There's that famous saying that we are spiritual being experiencing human experiences. So for me, in other words, in simple terms, do you see yourself have skin in the game of life to experience the I am, which is the essence, apart from what you do in your life, your worldly identities. Have fun with your worldly identities, but don't forget your soul. Your soul leads you to your own I am in order for you to feel alive. We are all here to figure out how to feel alive with the essence of the I am, which is the truth, love, and purity of peace.
Eleanora, I just want to thank you so much for sharing some of your journey and just enlightening us. And thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful, and I love your questions. Thank you very much, Betty.
If you would like further details about Eleanora and to order a copy of her book, then please follow links in the show notes.